It's called the A110, and it's made by Alpine, a French sports car firm who have a history of hitting the spot. The original A110, for example, won the World Rally Championship in 1973. And it's that car that gives the new one not only its name, but also its looks. So, what we have here is a small, pure, no-nonsense sports car aimed squarely at the Porsche Cayman and the Audi TT. And this, unfortunately, is where the problems begin. You see, this launch version of the Alpine costs £51,000. £51,000. Now, for £1,000 more, you can have the TT RS. That's the one Clarkson was driving in the last series. And that's more powerful and it's faster. And the Porsche Cayman you buy for £51,000 is also more powerful than this, and it's a Porsche, whereas this is an Alpine. That's something you're going to have to explain when you're down the pub. Even the engine sounds a bit lame. I don't mean the noise it makes. I mean when somebody asks you, "What's that got then, mister?" Because the answer is a 4-cylinder 1.8-litre turbo, sonny, for over £50,000. I mean, is that it? Also, I'm not sure about the looks. The original 1960s version was a masterpiece. But for me, this modern reboot doesn't quite work. The problem, I think, is that on modern cars there are rules about things like how high the headlights are above the ground, how forgiving the bonnet is if you run into a pedestrian. And once you stretch modern legislation over 1960s design language, you end up with a sort of slightly lame tribute act. So, is there anything good to report? Well, thankfully, yes. For starters, although Alpine is owned by Renault, this car is not just a hot McGann dressed up in some fancy suit. The A110 is in fact a mid-engined, rear-drive sports car designed from scratch on a clean sheet of paper. The body and the chassis are made entirely of aluminium, and the reason for that is simple. It's lightness. And from that starting point, the Alpine engineers nerded their way through the rest of the car and shaved off every spare gram they could find. The seats, for example, are half the weight of the ones you'll find in any hot Renault. The handbrake is built into the main calipers, rather than being separate, saving another 2.5 kilos. Even the stereo is a bespoke, lightweight design. And then there's this boot at the front, which is just deep enough for a small suitcase like this one. But now I think about it, putting the suitcase in there would just add weight. So what I would do is just pack my overnight stuff straight in there. The only downside is that in the morning I have to go outside if I want a fresh pair of pants. So, thanks to Alpine's fanatical diet regime, this car is 300 kilos lighter than a Cayman or an Audi TT. And that has a profound effect. Suddenly, it doesn't really matter that you've only got 1.8 litres and 248 horsepower. This thing absolutely zips along. 0 to 60, 4.5 seconds. Top speed limited to 155 miles an hour. And then, when you get to a corner, you find out just how agile this thing is. It's like driving a feather. like a cartoon car. It should come with those little bubbles saying piff, pow, bam. But even though the A110 is built to minimalist principles, you never feel like you're in some miserable Spartan track day car. It has aircon, sat-nav, phone connectivity, all the modern things you want. This whole lightness and smallness thing cascades down in a sort of waterfall of pure joy. Lower weight means you don't need such big tyres, you don't need so much grip. That gives the car more feel. Low weight means you use less fuel, you make lower emissions. It's just win, 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 win all the way. This is actually the most intelligent car I've driven for years. And I love it for that. I love it.